big exclusive. Indiabull Housing has received the RBI nod to go ahead for the name change. Now, the company will begin the transition to a new identity, Samman Capital. And my colleague Ankur actually managed to speak to Mr. Gagan Banga, the Vice Chairman and MD of the company, in terms of this timeline, transition, and everything about that as well. So let's go across and listen into that chat.
Yeah, so we had started the reorganization process from a governance standpoint about 3 years ago, which had several steps to it, including reorganization of the board, its various subcommittees, as well as a change in the very ownership that the company had 3 years ago. So it started with Mr. Gehlaut exiting the board, first stepping down, and Mr. Mundra, the former deputy governor, taking over as the chairman of the board. And subsequently, Mr. Gehlaut stepped down from the board, sold part of his shareholding so that he could start the depromoterization process under the SEBI guidelines. And post various approvals, that process ended earlier this year in February. And since then, he exited the balance 9.5% that he had. So as per the information and records available with me, as of September 30th, Mr. Gehlaut had no shareholding in the company whatsoever, directly or indirectly.
Okay, so you can confirm that he has completely exited the company, that 2% holding which was there earlier, it's not anymore.
That is correct.
Okay. Apart from that, we also want to understand what is the update on transitioning towards new identity. We learned that new name, Samman Capital, has been finalized. Has it been approved by Reserve Bank of India?
Yeah, so as of now, we have all the necessary approvals for Samman Capital. The Reserve Bank has suggested or has instructed a transition process to the name, which we are duly following. And my sense is that within the current quarter, the transition process will get over. So fingers crossed, on or before 31st of December, we would have embraced the new identity. And there is also a lot of internal work which is going on in order to execute on the transition. We are a retail-focused organization, so there's a wide distribution out there, and a lot of things need to change. I'm quite hopeful that before the end of the current quarter, which is 31st December, we should have embraced the new identity. It does not require any further approvals here.
Help us understand the technicalities of it. Last time when Reserve Bank of India had released the upper layer NBFCs, Indiabulls Housing Finance was listed there. But we understand that you also want to change the license part of it. So what is the update on that front?
So that's an ongoing discussion with the Reserve Bank, and it's a voluntary exercise that we have embraced. There would always be a technical process of in any transition from one type of a license to another type of license. As we speak, that entire transition is being effected under the guidance of the Reserve Bank, and there again, I'm hopeful that within the current quarter, we should have completed that.
Okay, and apart from the name change and as you mentioned, the license change, is there going to be any change in the company, the way it is functioning, the way it is targeting customers?
So we've been focusing on an asset-light strategy for the last 3 years. And that strategy had 3 parts to it. The first part was selecting a few partners, which was a process of mutual selection. They selected us and we selected them. And at our end, we wanted to work with mid-tier banks where we could actually make a meaningful contribution to their distribution, such that these partnerships are not seen as a flash in the pan or non-strategic. We actually add value to the overall business, especially on the secured retail side that a bank does. So our numbers are of relevance to each of these banks. So that process took almost 1.5 years. The last year has been more about managing scale as well as doing the IT integration, without which scale can't really happen. So I think with 8 of our banks, both of these processes are over. There has been steady increase in business. But clearly the last 6 months or so, we were more focused on IT integration and less on scale up. We did not want the thing to become unmanageable. As of September 30th, I think most of the integration is on. We've also shortlisted 2 new partners, and those banks have approved at their boards the partnership with us. So those should get effective before 31st of December. So the list of partners would increase from 8 to 10. And from the month of October, the clear internal message is that we are back to growth. So Indiabulls Housing, which stood for steady growth at about give or take 20%, would over the course of the next decade stand for steady growth of about 15 to 16% annualized in AUM. And that should start getting reflected in terms of stability of the AUM in this quarter. And then thereon, as we form the base, we should be back to steady compounding annually. And we hope to do that. We hope that we've invested the last 5 years in the right things, and we built a base for at least a decade-long steady compounding in high teens.
Right. When these kind of changes happened, Mr. Banga, one of the questions which has been often asked by the shareholders is that, is there going to be any change in the management as well in near future? How do you address that?
So the current management team has a vintage of, as in the top 5 or 6 people will have a vintage of, on an average, 15 to 16 years in the company. I've personally spent about 17 years with Indiabulls Housing, which is from day one, and 23 years with association with the Indiabulls brand. So the team is experienced, the team is committed, and we believe that we have the right kind of people at the helm as well as running down at the to the mid level to manage our current scale of operation, as well as to be able to get us from our current 600-700 crores a month of retail business to about 2,000 crores of disbursals per month by March of 25, which is the near-term goal that we've set for ourselves. That said, the distribution world is changing, the technology world is changing. So one is always beefing up the team in terms of both senior people at the IT level, further complementing our compliance and risk functions, and the ground level distribution is also something that constantly keeps increasing. So that's where we are. We are focused on technology, risk, compliance, and distribution. And these are parts where there will be significant enhancements, both in manpower as well as systems. The other strategic part is around the ownership of the company. As the company stands today, it's a board-driven company, managed by professionals and owned by a wide variety of shareholders. Over 4 lakh shareholders is what the company has. Life Insurance Corporation is the largest shareholder, but aside of that, another 30% is owned by institutions, both domestic and foreign. And that's a fairly well-diversified group. When a company is of the relevance and scale that we have, is managing an equity base of over $2 billion. Our equity stands at about 18,000 crores, but the market cap is in the handle of 8,000 to 9,000 crores. We are obviously an attractive buy. But at the same point in time, we have to also make sure that the team which is stuck together and has delivered on this very significant deleveraging, stabilization of the company through a period of high turmoil is also adequately rewarded, and their ambitions are not compromised for any reason. So as the CEO of the business, it is a responsibility for me to ensure that for the team. And any strategic option that comes up to us and is then discussed with the board would be discussed on these lines. What is it that can allow us to grow in a very consistent manner at 15-16% for the next 10 years. At the same point in time, what protects the interests of the employees besides other stakeholders?